Hello and welcome to this training on attention and listening. This training has been developed by the Regional Children with Disabilities Speech and Language Therapy team. My name is Katie Miller and I'm a speech and language therapist. The learning outcomes for this training are to learn more about how attention and listening skills develop, to be aware of strategies to support attention and listening skills, to be able to name activities to support attention and listening development. On this slide, we can see the communication pyramid. You may already be familiar with this pyramid if you've accessed our early engagement and interaction training. We have other training sessions on play, comprehension, understanding, expression, intensive interaction, communication-friendly environments, AAC, and eating, drinking and swallowing skills. Let's start by defining what attention and listening skills are. Listening is the ability to concentrate on an auditory signal, for example, a person's voice or an environmental sound. And attention is the ability to sustain listening over a period of time. So why are attention and listening skills so important? Everybody needs to develop their attention and listening skills to enable them to communicate effectively. If a child or young person can't or doesn't share attention with an adult, there is no opportunity for an interaction to happen there. And without an interaction, there is no or very little potential to develop communication skills. Let's think about sensory processing. All activities in life involve some degree of sensory stimuli. Sensory stimuli refers to everything in our environment: objects, light, sound, colours, and smells. The way we each process these sensory stimuli may be slightly different, but for some children and young people, there may be big differences in how they can process this sensory information. Having some difficulty processing sensory stimuli can impact on an individual's ability to learn, to concentrate, to regulate their emotions, to socialise with others, to pay attention, perform everyday activities. For some children and young people with sensory processing differences or difficulties, it may be much more difficult for them to develop their attention and listening skills. It's very important when we're working with children and young people to look out for these sensory processing differences. It can look like distractibility, being overly attentive to details, anxiety, or in lots of cases, difficulties in simultaneously processing multiple stimuli. For example, listening to an instruction whilst already engaged in a different task. Let's talk about levels of attention. On the screen, you can see 6 levels of attention which were developed by Raynell in 1977. These 6 levels set out how attention and listening typically develops over the first 6 years or so of a child's life. We are going to talk more about each level on the following slides. The first level is known as fleeting attention. At this level, the child or young person is extremely distractible. Their attention flits from one object or person or event to another. Any new event will immediately distract the child or young person. For example, if they are playing and then someone walks into the room. Children and young people at this level need toys, objects and pictures to support their learning. They need to touch, smell and see new objects. Adults need to follow the child and your young person's lead. You don't always have to be in the driving seat. The next level is known as rigid attention. At this level, the child or young person can concentrate on a concrete task of his or her own choosing, meaning the task must be physically in front of them. At this stage, they may not be too happy about adult interruption and can appear willful. The child or young person must ignore all distractions in order to concentrate on the task at hand. At this stage, it's really beneficial to sit alongside the child or young person and play with them without taking over. The next level is known as single-channeled attention. At this stage, a child or young person cannot cope with listening and looking at the same time. It either has to be one or the other. For example, it's very difficult for them to listen to an adult giving directions whilst they're playing. With help, we are able to encourage the child or young person to shift their attention to the speaker and then back to the game. You will need to help direct the child or young person's attention. For example, by saying their name, asking them to look at your face if they're comfortable with that, and then giving the instruction. At this stage, it's important to only use short and simple instructions, and it's important to get down to the child or young person's eye level. The fourth level is known as focusing attention. At this level, the child or young person can still only cope with either looking or listening, but they are not able to do this spontaneously without an adult's help. They may still occasionally need a reminder to look at you, or may need you to call their name to gain their attention in the beginning. Make sure you give the child or young person time to focus their attention before giving your instructions. Level 5 is known as two-channeled attention. At this level, the child or young person understands verbal instructions related to the activity without interrupting their task to look at the speaker. So they can carry on with what they're doing and listen to what you're saying at the same time. Concentration span may still be short, but the child or young person can be taught in the group setting. They may still need occasional refocusing on a task. The final level is known as integrated attention. The child or young person can look, listen, and do at the same time, and all these skills are fully integrated. The child or young person's attention is well established and can be sustained in a variety of activities. We have learnt about the levels of attention, and we have a better idea of how it develops. Think about your child, or maybe a child in your class, and where they fit within these levels. Let's talk about child-led versus adult-led activities. As adults, we often like to be in charge or in control of what the children or young people are doing, and we like to choose the activities. But activities that are already of interest to the child or young person are going to be much easier for them to engage in and attend to. If we can initially choose tasks that are highly preferred by the child or young person, this not only helps build rapport, but can start to develop their attention and listening skills. Sometimes attention and listening activities can look like playing, and that's absolutely fine if that's the level that the child is at and the type of activity that they're interested in. If possible, try to reduce background noise or distractions as much as possible. For example, turn off TVs, phones, or iPads. Think about where you are at the time. Is it possible to take them somewhere quieter? So let's think about some strategies or ways in which we can help the child or young person. Make sure we try and gain their attention before giving instructions. For example, we can call their name, we might need to touch their arm, get down to their level, encourage eye contact if the child or young person is comfortable with this, before giving them short, clear instructions on a one-to-one basis. Remember that these instructions may need to be supplemented with signs or visuals to help the child understand. Let's talk about adapting our language for the child or young person. It's very important for us as adults to adapt our language to help support the child or young person understand and therefore develop their attention and listening skills. Some things that we can do are keep our instructions short and simple, slow down our own rate of speech, repeat, rephrase, or emphasize important information, reduce the amount of redundant language that we use, which we are all guilty of doing. For example, we might say, now what we're going to do today when we get ourselves all organised is have a bit of lovely breakfast and then do some work. Instead, it might be better initially to just say, first breakfast, then work. And again, it's very important to supplement our spoken language with visuals signs, gesture, makaton, or even objects to reinforce the meaning of what we're saying. Giving time and praise. It's very important to give the children and young people we work with time to respond. The time it takes for them to process language or an instruction might be much longer than it takes you or I. We need to check that they have understood and model how to complete a command if it's needed. It's also really important to really praise our children and young people when they do complete a command or a task in the way in which we want them to. And it is absolutely fine to work for very short periods of time. If a child or young person can only concentrate on something for 20 seconds, that is an okay place to start with our tasks. Whether this is the right time. Does this activity have to be done right now? If a child or young person is demonstrating that they are unable to transition or engage with the task at present, there is no point in doing it now. We want the children and young people to have successful experiences. If a child or young person is beginning to lose interest, either change the task or cut it short to make sure you end on a positive. Here are some activities to try. You may want to try an attention autism group, which is a great way of developing that early attention and listening. If you're unsure how to run an attention autism group, please ask your speech and language therapist. You may want to try engagement with sensory toys, or completing a simple task such as a shape sorter, a jigsaw, or an inset puzzle. You may want to try some games where the child or young person has to respond to their name, or musical chairs, musical dance games where they have to stop and go to the music. After this, you may want to try some sound discrimination tasks, for example, matching a sound to a picture or finding the right instrument. Or games such as Simon Says, where the child or young person has to listen to the instruction and follow it. Here are some further activities which may be useful to try when the children or young people are at a slightly higher level of attention and listening. You may want to think about auditory memory games, such as I went to the market and I bought. Barrier games, where the children or young people give instructions to each other. True or false games, where they have to listen carefully to what is being said. Listening comprehension tasks, where they have to follow longer instructions. Following directions worksheets, or even Chinese whispers. We are now coming to the end of our attention and listening training. Here is a short quiz that you can try. Question 1. How many levels of attention are there? Question 2. Name 3 strategies to support a child or young person's attention and listening. Question 3. Name 3 activities that may assist with the development of attention and listening skills. Hopefully you now feel that you understand a bit more about the development of attention and listening skills and know some of the strategies that can be used to support the development of these skills. If you have any further questions, please speak to your local speech and language therapist. You may also want to refer to the other trainings that are available and access these at a time that suits you. Thank you very much for completing this training today.